Yeah, I know. We literally just made another video talking about the Elias Pettersson trade talk. That was from yesterday. That was via Nick Kyprios and a few other sources. PD trade talk is all the rage nowadays, my friends. But it turns out Elias Pettersson ain't the only guy that Vancouver Canucks fans can feast their eyes on when it comes to trade ideas. Because earlier this morning, on Wednesday, February 25th, we have a whole bunch of other conversations to have about different guys, too. And we're going to be diving into all that and more in this video. I wanted to give a big shout out over to NHL Rumor Report on Twitter. They've been going out there and posting everything. Sometimes it's overwhelming, honestly. The amount of tweets that they have of the newest info and trade speculation and insider commentary on stuff. So we really appreciate what they do on Twitter because they went out there and posted just all the newest and latest on Vancouver Canucks stuff, starting out with what Darren Dreger said on Insider Trading yesterday. This is about Elias Pettersson. I can tell you that Pettersson's agents are well aware of the trade discussions that are happening, but they're not going to include Pettersson, who has a no-move clause, until it gets to a point where there is a potential deal. So, what exactly does this mean? Essentially, the agents want Vancouver to get all the way into a Pettersson trade before Pettersson himself gets notified about the situation and before he is asked to waive. It doesn't seem like this is the same type of ordeal that the Canucks did with their former captain, Quinn Hughes, where they essentially worked with him to try to find the best fit, and there were essentially multiple conversations with multiple teams. It seemed like Vancouver treated Quinn Hughes as if he had trade protection, even though he didn't. For Elias Pettersson, it seems like they are straight up just not acknowledging him until a trade gets pushed through, and then at the very last second they're asking, hey, do you want to go to LA? We have a trade already in the works. If you're good with it, just say yes, and then we'll get it done. Interesting strategy here. There also was some other commentary from Darren Dreger. The Canucks were eager before the freeze hit. They're eager coming out of the roster freeze, so I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Canucks were among the first to make a deal this week. That was via Sakaris and Price 2 days ago, and of course we all recognize that Vancouver was not the first team to make a trade. That honor belonged to St. Louis and New York, where they swapped out Matt Luff for Julien Gauthier. We did make a video about that specific trade as well. It was a really great trade from the Islanders' POV, so you can check out that video if you so please. But next up on the chopping block, we have ourselves a conversation about Evander Kane. Yeah, that's right. It's everybody's favorite Vancouver Canucks winger, Evander Kane. His name is also in trade talks. Take a look at the profile over here. 34 years old, signed on till the end of this season, making $5.125 million a year. Evander Kane has honestly been very normal. I don't want to say good, I don't want to say bad. There are some very terrible plays that he makes with the puck, but just on paper, the fact that he has 25 points in 56 games is actually a decent surprise. Like, I think a lot of Canucks fans maybe had thought Evander Kane would be doing worse, and I definitely don't think you're irrational if you had thought that at the beginning of the season. I, for one, was a lot more optimistic that Kane would be able to be a proven 20 to 25 goal scorer and maybe 40-50 point guy with Elias Pettersson, but that unfortunately has not happened. Trade buzz around Evander Kane has been going quite rampant over the past few days. Take a look at what Frank Saravalli said on Frankly Hockey. The Vancouver Canucks are certainly trying to get the Evander Kane deal done sooner rather than later. This, of course, is a really big deal because Evander Kane's pending UFA status makes him one of the top guys that Vancouver probably should be interested in trading away. It is the Canes, it is the Blugers. There are a number of guys on this roster that probably shouldn't be on it after the trade deadline. Vancouver is in a rebuild. Evander Kane does not contribute to that rebuild until he is traded away for a pick or a prospect, even if it is not as good as what the Canucks shelled out to get him in the first place. Take a look at some of these other updates here. Thomas Drance went out there and wrote about Evander Kane on The Athletic. The Canucks are motivated to move him, and Kane's camp is motivated to find a new team for him to play for. However, Drance says he still doesn't get the sense that the market for Kane is extremely robust. And I know a lot of Canucks fans who read this sentence, they're like, darn it, the rest of the league is on to him. They know this guy ain't really all that special. But you can't shake the reputation that he has. At the end of the day, Evander Kane, still labeled as a power forward, still labeled as an agitator here on Elite Prospects. He is a guy that was able to provide some very decent to good scoring with the Edmonton Oilers the past few years in the playoffs, all while providing that physical element that teams so very much covet in the postseason and beyond. This is why, if we take a look at some of these teams, Thomas Drance wrote about Kane, saying it'll be curious to see if he is more of a fallback option for teams like the Dallas Stars, LA Kings, Tampa Bay Lightning, and Colorado Avalanche. Now, all of these teams we had mentioned as potential Evander Kane destinations. We've made numerous videos about the two teams in the Central. We had spoken about Tampa Bay. LA is interested in him. They're interested in everybody, especially now that Kevin Fiala is injured, and especially since Ken Holland is at the helm of that Los Angeles franchise. Why don't you make a trade for both of them, Kane and Pettersson, over to LA for a whole bunch of stuff? Free up the cap, grab a prospect, grab some picks, and then maybe try to do something in the playoffs if you're LA. I don't know. Does that make sense? Evander Kane, he's got to find himself out of Vancouver at some point. So that is the Kane situation. Finally, we have some updates that I wanted to go over in regards to Conor Garland. Yeah, that's right. His name has been brought up in trade conversations as well. As much as Canucks fans love Conor Garland's on-ice play, I think many of us can understand. He's 29 years old. He is at the end of a $4-point-something million AAV deal. He's already got that 6x6 extension coming soon, and he doesn't have trade protection right now. He'll have trade protection when that next contract kicks in, which will allow him to choose his fate and potentially go back to the U.S. But for now, Conor Garland is free to be traded wherever. He's 5'9", 181, very talented, very aggressive offensive forechecker and player. But this season, he is on pace for 39 points over 71 games. He has been very productive the past few years, consistent 40 to 50 point guy. This season, he is on pace for fewer points. He has really struggled to score ever since the Quinn Hughes trade went down. And this is the latest on Conor Garland, courtesy of Rick Dhaliwal from earlier yesterday. Dhaliwal said he's got more and more people telling him that the Vancouver Canucks are now open to moving Conor Garland. That was not the case for weeks and weeks. I think this tweet from V5 Calgary Flames sums it up nicely. The Vancouver Canucks have simply given up. And I feel like that's a pretty easy conclusion to make. Just the feeling of how these NHL teams seem to be and what the fans are thinking, and just coming out of this Olympic break, it's so demoralizing for us Vancouver Canucks fans, because it's like, yeah, we went from cheering for Crosby, McKinnon, and Celebrini and McDavid to watching the Vancouver Canucks. Like, imagine the downgrade. How bad can you get going from watching that Team Canada squad all the way to the worst team in the NHL in the span of a few days? Vancouver may have given up here, and I think it's totally fine for them to have done that. So with that said, let me know your thoughts in the comments section. How do you feel about all these updates for Evander Kane, Elias Pettersson, Conor Garland, and these Canucks updates? I hope you enjoyed this video. Sign on, and bye.